Alrighty, hello and welcome everybody to the Problem Solver Politics live stream tonight. For anyone just tuning in, which I guess would be the start of the show, so most people. Carden is not here tonight. I believe he's still on vacation, so good for him. And you will be seeing him on Monday. I will probably be gone on Monday. Well, not probably, hopefully gone on Monday. Scheduled to be gone on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So just an update as to where we are in there. Hope everyone's been having a great, a great week. I was going to say great day, but it's Friday. Hope everyone's having a great week. And today I have a pretty fun story I want to go through with you guys. So, I could pull up a bunch of articles, but I'll just kind of give you guys the gist of the background here. I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware of some parts of this, right? So, obviously, it's been a pretty rough 2020 for most people. New York City in particular. You could say Bill DeBlasio even more so in particular. He had dropped out of the race already, but he had a failed presidential run that ended in 2019 going into this year. Anyway, coronavirus wrecked New York City. It was at one point the epicenter of the globe. Wasn't very good. That didn't help with the budgets. Everyone left the city. Actually, a bunch of New York City people left New York City and got people sick in other parts of the country. So thank you, New York City, for that. Anyways, as the demonstrations, so to speak, have continued over the past month and a half or so, Bill DeBlasio responded to some of the calls, and he slashed the budget for NYPD by, I think, about $1 billion. What's what I'm looking for? There was a couple hundred officers whose basically job it was to walk around in the streets and engage in what they call the stop and frisk policy, no, stop and frisk, and let me know in chat if I'm getting this wrong. I'm just kind of running through the gist of it so we can get some texture of what's going on here, but stop and frisk, from what I remember, was specifically created for the reason of reducing gun violence, I believe. And the idea was this: we're going to have police go to the neighborhoods where people get shot, and they're going to look for the people that they think are the shooting people, and they're going to stop them, they're going to frisk them, they're going to find the guns, they're going to arrest them. I think that was literally the plan. I don't think they were stopping and frisking for drugs. I don't think they were stopping and frisking for stolen goods. I think it was guns. That was basically it. Well, Michael Bloomberg came out and admitted that it was perhaps racist, the policy. It was under a lot of scrutiny. Anyway, they don't really practice stop and frisk very much anymore, and I believe Bill DeBlasio took the officers that were stationed to essentially what was the stop and frisk unit. They just walked around as plainclothes people and stop and frisk people. They had been moved to other departments. Now, here's one of the things, right? It's like, I don't know how anyone could act like this is surprising on any level. When they decided to repeal the policy that exists solely to curb gun violence went up. Crazy, right? They took hundreds of people off the street whose only job it was to stop gun violence off the street, and suddenly gun violence went up. What'd you know? Anyways, let's get to what's going on today, right? There's people getting shot in New York for years, unfortunately, but it's gotten bad in the last week. We were talking earlier this week about how it was bad in Atlanta over the 4th of July weekend. It was bad in a lot of cities over the 4th of July weekend. New York City was just one of them. Now we're going to get into some of the interesting stuff today. So anyways, let's go through this article from the Daily News. Just a little, again, I'm sure a lot of you guys knew that, but just, we'll go through what's kind of going on in New York City. And it's not an all-encompassing history. It's a quick gloss over. I'm sure there's some things I missed. But still, NYPD has been defunded, crime has been going up, and the officers whose job it was to stop shootings were moved elsewhere. So, obviously things got out of hand. Actually, we'll go over this. It's a sad story, but I just kind of want to show you guys what's going on. This is an article from a couple days ago, July the 8th. It says, 35-year-old bicyclist fatally shot near his East Harlem home. An East Harlem bicyclist was fatally shot near his home early Monday, not East Monday. One of 6 shootings, 2 of them fatal, reported in the Big Apple within less than 24 hours, according to the police, which is crazy. 2 people dead from shooting in 24 hours. Big city, New York City, but still, it's like, hope it doesn't happen, right? So anyways, Kenneth Brown was 35. He was riding his bike on Pleasant Avenue near East 120th Street around 12:45 a.m. when a man came from across the street and started firing at him, cops said. Brown was pronounced dead at the nearby hospital. There were no immediate arrests, police said. The incident comes amid a surge in gunplay across the city. Brown's murder was one of 6 shootings with 7 victims reported citywide on Tuesday and early Wednesday. Damn, 7 people shot. They included a second fatality in East New York, where a 27-year-old man was gunned down just before noon Tuesday in Lincoln Terrace Park, at East New York Avenue and Buffalo Avenue in Crown Heights. This is the New York Post. I'm not from New York City. Those street names don't mean a whole lot to me, but I am pretty sure some people it means a lot. Anyway, they go on to mention that at 3:30 p.m., a 15-year-old boy was shot in the back on Mapes Avenue in the Bronx and taken to Jacoby Hospital. The suspect fled on a scooter, police said. Interesting. A 25-year-old woman was shot in the right thumb a little before 10:30 p.m. About 10 minutes later, a 32-year-old man was shot in the head and wounded in Far Rockaway by an unknown gunman in a white Ford Explorer. Shortly before 11:30 p.m. in Brooklyn, a 33-year-old woman was shot in the chest and a man, 30, in the right arm following a dispute. And the violence they mentioned came after a bloody Independence Day weekend. So anyway, things are clearly starting to get out of hand and not good. This is starting to get what you would call unacceptable. So today, Bill DeBlasio, this is the New York Daily News now, he unveiled a plan. It's an interesting one. We're going to go through some of it. Now, I have to admit, I had no idea that one of the things he's talking about here is actually being practiced for multiple years, at least on the same official level in a couple major cities. So what are we talking about here? Here's the news. Mayor DeBlasio unveiled new measures to stop the rising tide of gun violence in the city Friday, including an increased police presence in certain areas and getting clergy and community groups more involved in mediating disputes. The city will increase the number of police on more than 20 streets and city housing projects as part of the plan, and will organize neighborhood walks with community leaders and cops to show common cause. Remember when Bill de Blasio was showing common cause to people that are protesting and demonstrating, and he said, I will reduce the police budget. We should not have police in these communities. Police should stop doing X. Anyway, a bunch of shootings, what are we going to do? You will start to notice an increased number of police in your neighborhoods. I mean, people are dying. Maybe they need to, but wow. It's almost like nothing Bill Blasio says actually matters. Bill de Blasio, because they'll just do whatever. And not just Bill de Blasio, a lot of these mayors. They'll say, we're all for the protests. And then it's like, okay, things got out of hand. You're going to be seeing a lot of police, but it goes further than that. They mentioned that, here we go. We cannot have people live in fear. We cannot have young people in the crosshairs. It's not something we will allow in the city, de Blasio said. We have to do better. So de Blasio put specific emphasis on measures being implemented in Harlem, where construction worker Kenneth Brown, we just went through, was killed in a hail of bullets on Wednesday. Very sad. As of July 5th, there's been 33 shootings in Manhattan North. Wow. Which includes all of Harlem as well as Inwood, Washington Heights, the Upper East and Upper West Sides, along with parts of Midtown. That is crazy, man. 33 shootings, and I know New York City is a big area, but not all of New York City. And I have to, again, got to admit, my American geography, I don't know what the hell Manhattan North actually refers to, but if you take any part of New York City and reduce it and say there's 33 shootings in 5 days. But again, I mean, it is kind of natural if shootings were a problem, so you implemented something to stop the shootings and then you just pulled it back, there would probably be shootings recurring as a problem. But this is where it gets interesting. I feel like I said that 15 times. Anyway, accompanying the mayor at his Friday press briefing was New York Senator Brian Benjamin, representing Harlem, and Aisha Sekou, head of the Street Corner Resources, a nonprofit violence interrupter program. Sekou said one of the keys of her work is to de-escalate tense situations between rivals, but she raised hackles among city lawmakers after raising one scenario in which interrupters might physically remove someone from a dispute. Sometimes, quote, sometimes you have to grab a kid up once in a while and put him in the van and just say, look, you're not getting out until we bring this down, she said. City council members Joe Borelli and Bob Holden, by the way, bipartisan here, one's Republican, one's a Democrat, slammed Sekou for the statement, saying it highlights precisely what's wrong with the mayor's new approach to law enforcement. Obviously, they're not peace officers. They can't forcibly hold someone against their will. I understand it may go against their kumbaya mentality, but we need the police for that. Holden described, actually the Democrat in the scenario, described such an approach as totally absurd and worries someone could get hurt in a scenario like the one Sekou described. Have you ever tried to approach a New Yorker who throws some litter out of their car? It escalates, he said. I would imagine. Somebody's going to get shot in the head. These are gang members. De Blasio praised Sekou for her remarks, calling them profound truths. He acknowledged that Sekou and others like her are putting themselves in harm's way and put their lives on the line with the work they do. And they go on to mention that, here we go. This is where the key interesting thing to me about this program. But we'll go through some stories. These programs exist. Implications remain unclear if someone were to get hurt. When questioned, the mayor's press office and the city law department would not outline exactly what violence interrupters are legally empowered to do and whether they're required to follow any specific safety protocols. City Hall spokeswoman Avery Cohen said that in the event of an injury or death, the nonprofit would be liable. Lovely. Lovely. So, to sum it up, from what I'm understanding here is going on, is part of the reason that New York City's broke in general. They're just running out of money. Things have been pretty bad for New York City. Coronavirus didn't help, and things kind of kept getting worse. Some money had to come from somewhere. Hey, it came from the police department. That's where it's got to come from. People are asking for it. But obviously, it didn't work. A lot of people are dying and getting shot on basically a daily basis. So, that's not good. So, part of, one, just directing a bunch of police there, which is hilarious. It's Bill DeBlasio hears you. Bill DeBlasio knows when Bill DeBlasio hears people say they want the police to fund it out of their neighborhoods, he listens, and that's what he does. But then when the shootings go up, he says, you know what, you're probably going to be, I believe the exact quotes for him is at the time to take back the streets. Bill DeBlasio is take it back the streets. He's doing it by himself? No. Just him and the NYPD? No, he can't. No money. He's going to enlist New Yorkers. I'm going to say you, but I don't know how many guys from New York City. But he's going to enlist people from New York City to go out there and do something. Interrupt violence. What are they actually legally allowed to do? He wouldn't say. What happens if something bad happens to them? Well, then a nonprofit's liable. Or if they hurt somebody, a nonprofit's liable. But hey, what if they hurt somebody in the name of interrupting violence, just doing their job? Now, for people who live in, I believe, some of the cities I've seen that actually have violence interrupter programs, we'll go through. It looks like Louisville might be getting rid of theirs, or there's talks to maybe get rid of it, but I believe Washington, D.C., Louisville, Baltimore, a couple other cities all have these, or Chicago, I believe, these violence interrupter programs. Now, actually, let's go through this. This is an art. I thought this was interesting, actually. Because when I first saw that, I'm like, oh, that's just some gibberish that Bill DeBlasio made up. We'll call them, what do we call vigilantes? We'll call the vigilantes violence interrupters. There we go. That's a better name than vigilante. They're violence interrupters. But here we go. This is from the National Institute of Justice. This is from 2009. Talking about violence interrupters. But as far as I understand, some of the stuff they're talking about here, because this is actually from Ceasefire, which is a nonprofit, and I think they kind of still exist in Chicago today. But a lot of what they describe here is kind of how a lot of the stuff works. Anyway, violence interrupters must work in the netherworlds of street gangs and pass muster with gang leaders. Interrupters cruise the streets of the toughest neighborhoods to identify and intervene in gang-related conflicts before they intensify. If a shooting has occurred, they seek out the victim's friends and relatives and try to prevent a retaliatory shooting. People who fit this bill often lack traditional workplace experience, and finding and hiring them is not easy. Many have been in trouble with the law. However, the violence interrupters interviewed for the evaluation said they had turned their lives around and wanted to help others do the same. Ceasefire set up many safeguards to ensure that the violence interrupters stayed clean. They are hired by a panel that includes police officers and local leaders. Background checks are run with particular attention given to crimes against women and children. Some sites do not hire anyone with a felony conviction, and violence interrupters have to pass periodic drug tests. It does pay. They mentioned about $15 an hour, which in 2008 was, twice the federal minimum wage. However, you were basically like, it's like you're a not undercover cop with no legal protections. Now, as far as I understand, some of the gist they're getting into is basically they're saying, look, people who live in the neighborhoods and know the people who live in the neighborhoods with them, they could probably like for a cop or a regular person might drive through the neighborhood and just see like two people walking towards each other and not think anything of it. But someone who lives there might be like, what the hell is that? They hate each other. Why are they just like what's, you know what I mean? And they could potentially intervene, whereas police would just drive by and say, that's weird. What's the commotion? Oh, cool. They shot each other. That's not good. We should stop it. Someone who lives there might see, oh no, a commotion between those two. I know exactly what's going on. So there's some sense to be made there. Unfortunately, Yeah, what happens when they do just run up and do a crime and try to intervene with it? And it actually is interesting, too, talking about this, because it gets to, in general, I mean, you know what? People have been talking about part of the defund the police or reform the police reform movements, pulling back the budget or increasing the budget to have room for people that are essentially this, a little bit more, they'll call them like social workers, right? I mean, the thing, I've always felt like I've seen a homeless guy go 1-on-2 versus 2 cops who are just like, hey, buddy, can you move along? Not supposed to be here. Was he in the right to do that? No, he wasn't. Like I don't see why they wouldn't. I've seen like random people. You'd be like, well, you know, that's not a crime. It's just some guy over there. You know, or there's just some girls. Like, sometimes that's like the cop gets stabbed. I don't see how sending somebody who isn't a cop will protect them from those things happening to them. Sometimes people call the cops on suspicious people because they're, you know, violent, suspicious people. And I feel like you don't want this happening as well, where you don't want, I mean, essentially, you're a paid vigilante by the state. Like, you can't actually arrest anybody. You can't actually, what's what I'm looking for? You can't actually do, like, you can't do any, like, law enforcement. All you can do is, like, hey, break it up, guys, break it up. But, like, you're paid by the cops to, like, specifically target, like, people you know will shoot at each other and tell them to break it up. Like, okay, it's a great way to get shot, it feels like, going between 2 people with a gun. Hey, break it up, guys, break it up. But I wanted to go through this because this is from April 2020. So this is from 4 months ago? 3 months ago? You know, a couple months ago, whatever. But anyways, it's an interesting story. Well, it's an awful story. But it kind of highlights one of the problems, I guess you could say, with having a program. No, actually, this isn't a great example of that, but I want to get into some of the later stuff on it. So we'll scroll down a bit. All right, I'll go through. Anyway, so an ex-Louisville violence interrupter was sentenced to 17 years in prison in a strangulation case. It appears that he worked as a violence interrupter from September of 2018 up until the day he was arrested for assaulting and strangling a woman in her home. But to go through and explain a little bit of this, and I believe they also mentioned up ahead, they mentioned later on that another person was brought up on drug charges. I don't think it has anything to do with them being violence interrupters, but they get into some of the controversy or some of the issues Louisville had with it, and I want to go through this. So Louisville officials had introduced the Cure Violence model and street-level interrupters in 2017 following an uptick in shootings and homicides. The Cure Violence model treats violence as a public health issue with strategies associated with disease control used to identify and break up conflicts. Interrupters, who often had prior criminal records themselves, were hired and tasked with using their connections and credibility on the streets to engage and help people at risk of committing violence. You'll notice, this is from 2017 they implemented this. This is basically the exact same language we saw in that study published in the National Crime Institute or whatever from 2008. I mean, this is the same. This has been the idea. This is what violence interrupters are. They have existed. And I just bring that up because, interesting, I had no idea. I had never heard of this before. I don't live in Louisville. I don't live in these cities. Maybe some of you guys do and you have. But it was fascinating to me to hear that for about a decade, they've had pretty consistent literature. Find people that are either criminals or criminal adjacent, quite frankly, because they might actually know who's actually committing the crimes, the idea. And look, they mentioned they pay him about $36,000 a year, which, yeah, is like what, like a little bit above the federal minimum wage. I mean, it's even kind of like similar to that. But they mentioned this. The program came under fresh scrutiny last year by city leaders, driven in part by the arrest of this individual and another who was arrested on drug charges, but as well as related issues of non-compliance with hiring processes and financial documentation. I was trying to look for some more stories on it. I have to imagine what they're talking about here. If you remember, one thing that was in the 2008 government piece we saw here, what is it? This is from the National Institute of Justice, who are the violence interrupters. They mentioned that these people would have like here they go. The hiring panel would include police officers and local leaders. Background checks are run. Particular attention to crimes against women and children. Some sites won't hire anyone with a felony conviction. Violence interrupters have to pass periodic drug tests. I wonder if a lot of this stuff started getting skirted because that's expensive and hard to do. I wonder if that's what they're talking about with this. I wouldn't be surprised. The Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, the city agency that oversaw the program, also cut ties with one of the anti-violence groups that provided interrupters through a contract. University of Louisville Hospital ended its participation in the program. And despite Louisville Metro Police Chief Steve Conrad defending the interrupter program as an important piece of the city's anti-violence strategy, the Metro Council voted last June to strip funding for the initiative through a roughly $1 million budget cut to the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods. Sounds like for at least Louisville, it didn't really work. It sounds like a couple of the things that you obviously would imagine came up. People signed up to be violence interrupters who were just criminals themselves who would go on to commit crimes. Don't want that to happen. It appears they didn't actually vet the people well enough. And it just, I don't know. I just thought it was a very, very, very interesting, weird approach taken by Bill DeBlasio. But I love it. Bill DeBlasio is all for Black Lives Matter. He's all for the movement. He's all for the marches. He's all for it. But now that it's gotten out of hand, the city will be increasing the number of police on more than 20 streets and city housing projects as part of the plan. And they'll organize neighborhood walks with community leaders and cops to show common cause. It's one way of phrasing it, right? Marching police through these streets. It's one way of phrasing it. It's a neighborhood walk. It's not like a show of force. It's not us reasserting our control of the streets. Look, I know it's called the Take Back the Block program, and I said we have to take the streets back. I know those are the facts, and I know we're basically just marching police through the neighborhoods and recruiting neighbors to work as snitches against you. I know that's what's going on. But don't worry, it's a neighborhood walk because we all... Here's the funny thing, they probably do share a somewhat common cause to end the violence going on in those neighborhoods. But it's just hilarious. You know, you look at everything Bill DeBlasio... Just... Almost, I make the joke with Donald Trump, but almost any politician, man. If you ever want to know what a politician's going to do, it's the exact opposite of what they talk about. That's always what they do. Always. Like, yeah, maybe he'll defund the police, but he's not gonna like totally lessen up control. And in general, they're not going to. They might temporarily. It's one of the reasons why I don't buy into a lot of this, like, people talking about like civil wars, like the culture wars going, is it like the tip breaking point? Like, it may get there, but I think we still haven't reached the point yet where, like, if there is a, you know, it was a metaphorical war, right? I would think metaphorically only one side is taking the field. Nothing actually has happened yet. And I keep seeing people like Bill DeBlasio or Mayor Bowser in Washington, D.C. They basically are like, okay, we played around and we had our fun, but no more. No, fun's over. We're increasing the police budget in the case of Washington, D.C. Case of New York City, we're going to hire snitches and people to fight, to basically get into, like, this is what's crazy to me. And multiple cities have done this. I guess it works. But the notion of, like, paying people to get in street fights, to break up street fights, is the weirdest thing to me. But, hey, apparently it works. It worked for about, like 2 years in Louisville. And then they're like, well, one of them's just got, I think convicted with, you know, attempting to murder somebody. That was bad. And then especially in New York City, I thought it was interesting what the one council member brought up, where he said, have you ever tried to ask what does he say? It's a great quote. Have you ever tried to approach a New Yorker or throw some litter out of their car? It escalates. Exactly. I'm sure there's people in New York City that will try to fight like 2 or 3 cops for like being approached for littering. I'm sure they'll try to fight one violence interrupter. Oh my god. Anyway. There we go. So sorry guys, I'm just checking out some of the stuff in the chat. But yeah, it's just we can chalk this up. It's another example of people in government saying like, oh yeah, we're totally, like, here's the thing, man. If the government is ever agreeing with your protest, 1, no, they're not. And like 2, you're getting played. It's not I don't know just how any protest exists with the government support. Like, that's not a protest. How is that a protest? The government's like, how is it a protest if you're the only people allowed to do it and no one else can do it? You just get preferential treatment for it. To Bill DeBlasio saying it's not a protest. It sounds to me like, here's the funny thing, and it's a real tactic. I'm not saying everyone does it always. It's not a law of life, but this is a tactic people will do, right? And it'll be like this. Hey, don't go outside and protest. Not allowed to do it because of coronavirus. People will go out there and protest for Black Lives Matter, and there'll be too many people and too much stuff going around on to stop it. So we'll say, okay, fine. I don't only allow it, I approve of it. I think it's a great idea. I think Nobody else should still be able to do this because I can't actually stop you guys anyway. I agree with it. It's a great idea. And then as soon as things start getting out of hand, they'll start, reining them in a little bit and try to get control back when you can. You wait for them to kind of, lull them into a sense of security and then regain the control back. Like if somebody's doing something and they're just getting away with it and you can't stop it, you come across as more weak when you're like, I oppose these protests, and they just keep happening. These need to stop, and they just don't. It's like, wow, you're a moron. But if you're like, you know what? Maybe the protests aren't so bad. Maybe I like them. Maybe everyone should protest. Then people will still say you've lost control of the city because that is what's happening. But from a certain perspective, they can claim, look, everyone's just doing what I'm asking them to. I'm asking them to stay home, they're staying home. I'm asking them to come out, I'm like allowing them to protest, and they're coming out and doing it. Like imagine if Bill DeBlasio said he would allow anti-lockdown protests, just nobody came out to protest. That'd be weird. It'd be like, wow, why are you just allowing stuff people isn't popular? It looks like Bill DeBlasio's, being a pretty cool guy to some people. Now, again, what it actually means is your neighbor is going to be trying to fight somebody to stop the shootings that keep going on and, one or two a day in, like, neighborhoods. That's what it actually means. And it actually means you're going to have shows of force with police marching through your streets, but they're going to call them community walks or something. Neighborhood walks, sorry. That's it. But that's generally speaking how they'll do this. And I think we've seen a lot of governors and mayors' responses to the protests be okay, they won't really listen if I tell them to stop, and for kind of like political reasons, it's kind of hard for me to openly oppose them, so I'm just going to allow them to do it. Because the other thing, right? They also have this mindset of, if I allow people to do it and I'm encouraging it and they're coming out to protest almost at my behest, then maybe I can kind of reassert myself as the leader of it and then control it that way. I think that's what's going on with a lot of this stuff. There's probably some ideological stuff. Like if DeBlasio is a progressive, he probably agrees with some of it. But you'll notice, like, he's not such a progressive where he'll be like, well, like, he's not like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like, he's the kind of, like, Bill DeBlasio and a lot of other governors and mayors, they're the kind of, like, they're, like, for the cause up until anything negative and tangibly bad happens, and then they're against the cause, basically. Because, yeah, they never were for it. They're just, like, trying to lie and game and be on the right side of public opinion. They're like, people like this, so I should tell them to do it, and then all look cool. But yeah. Whew. Anyways. Sorry, I would just... That story just kind of got to me when I was reading that. It's like, of course Bill DeBlasio is. But he isn't as cool as... I've become a big fan of the mayor of Washington, D.C., Is it Muriel Bowser, I believe? No, it's Bowser. Or she'll be like, yeah, I'm all for Black Lives Matter. And they'll be like, okay, so are you going to defund the police? No, we're going to increase their funding because they need it. They will be funded with the rate they needed. Will you reconsider? No, I won't. Mayor Bowser, why are they tearing down the protesters' tents? We don't allow tents in the city. Yes, you do. There's some tents that are up. Well, they shouldn't be there. We don't allow them. That's when my police officers take them down. You're going to see more people come with that approach. And it works. Not always, but it can sometimes. People do it. So let's see. Let's see what everyone's talking about in chat. I would love to show the Massive Attack video, because I think it's cool. It's pro UBI. I had not heard about it until right now. But YouTube will drop kick me through my screen and burn my computer in front of me if I play something like that. So unfortunately, I don't think I can. Unfortunately, it's one of the things that I really do miss about streaming on streaming on Twitch was the ability to play stuff, have fun. YouTube's kind of no fun. Oh, that's interesting. What would I have done in DeBlasio's position? Here's the thing. It's tough to say because we'll just say, assuming I like inherited DeBlasio's position with all the other decisions, because like he got into that position by making a series of decisions, right? I would probably like. I agree. That might have been the only play to make in the decision he had gotten himself in, the position he had gotten himself into, right? Like, he made a bunch of decisions that got him where he is. You know, he said things. Bill de Blasio waged his war against the Jews, which I don't think helped either, because that was going in the face with a lot of other stuff he was doing. It's the reason why I know de Blasio will never give New York City. As long as Bill de Blasio is the mayor of New York City, he's going to have police officers harassing Jews, I guess. I'm not going to speak to his motives, but just that's the facts, apparently. Especially in all places, New York City. You think, why would you do that? Obviously, stories are going to come out all the time, and they do. People don't really care, but it's crazy to me. He'll wage his one-man war against them, but he needs the police to do it. I think that's the larger thing, is I recognize anyone who's what's the point of being a politician if there's no police? Nobody can make people do what you tell them they have to do. You could just say, you guys can't go outside, and they'll just go outside. And if you can't use police to stop them, then they just don't listen to you and you look like an idiot. And politicians don't like looking like idiots. They got such big brains, they got elected in the first place. So if you go out there and defy, it's one of the reasons why. Here's the thing. You'll see people get up to Washington, D.C. or the capitals of the various states, right? And they'll say, well, why isn't anybody addressing these problems, you know? I'm going to go up to Washington, D.C., I'm going to fix these problems. We got problems with housing, we got problems with healthcare, we got problems with the economy. I'm going to go and get elected, I'm going to solve these problems. People say that all the time, right? So I'm sure a lot of people like hearing that. No, elect these people. They're like, awesome, dude. You're going to go solve the problem. Yeah, why isn't anyone solving that problem? That's crazy. It's been a problem for so long. It's so obvious. Why isn't it being solved? Here's the problem. When you go to Washington, D.C., and in case California, when you get to Sacramento, whenever you get to that chamber of the other elected representative that's with you, right? Or if you're a mayor, when you're up there dealing with the governor and stuff, I don't think a lot of people realize, and this is like a recurring problem, right? You get to the House, or you get to the Senate, or you get to whatever, and you're now in a room with a bunch of people that have tried to do something to fix those problems. And they're just going to sit there and go, oh yeah, you're right, all of our attempts were bogus, or baloney, we suck, we should do it again. A lot of them will probably stand by. They'll say, well, we haven't done nothing, look what we passed on, this year. And, and then here's the thing, right? Imagine the position that puts people in. You're like, a freshman or a junior or whatever they call them, senator or congressperson or whatever. And you're coming in like, we got to fix some stuff about healthcare. And they'll say, we've been trying to get this bill passed for a while. We got some parts through. You're like, that bill sucks. It's crap. Really? Is that what you're going to do? You can walk up to your colleagues and say you suck at your job, you're crap? And then, yeah, I feel like that fight and that push to solve these problems we want solved probably dissipates. And you'll notice that these people turn into lackeys and stooges that are bickering about the same nonsense that everyone bickers about sooner than later. Because it's not a vacuum. These aren't like, it would be like, it would almost be like, if you're like an athlete. You're like, when I get drafted into the NBA, I'm just going to dunk every time. People are so stupid for not dunking. All I will do is slam dunk every single time. I will slam dunk on everybody I see. All I will do is slam dunk. It's the best move is the dunk. And you get up there and you have to understand that those are all professional people who probably also would like to dunk the ball every time if they could. But it's not just that easy, and they're all trying to. And it's kind of maybe a clumsy analogy, but you see what I mean. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to be in a room full of peers and colleagues who are like, yeah, funny, we tried doing that too. But we get stopped. There's people working against us on the other side. Not everyone agrees that we should be allowed to dunk the ball, but merely the other team. They agree we should not be allowed to dunk the ball on them. But in politics, that does happen. It's like, nobody else in the Senate's ever tried to write a bill to deal with healthcare in the entire... How long Bernie Sanders been in politics? How long has Nancy Pelosi specifically been in the House of Representatives? How long has she been a congressperson? What, she hasn't signed anything? She hasn't written on any bill to deal with any of this stuff? You're just going to show up and fix it? Show how dumb she was? Look at you idiots. I'll fix this stuff tomorrow. Yeah, they don't want that. How many people, that happens in every job. How many people have got hired to a new job? Anything. You could be hired at 7-Eleven, right? and be like, oh, you know what? I was just watching the way you guys were stocking the shelves. That appears to be inefficient. Perhaps this would be more efficient. How often is there pushback to ideas like that? I'm like, well, no, we do it this way, man. So I've always done it. Sometimes people will go, oh, damn, I didn't think about that. That's a good idea. But not always. There is times where something as dumb as that, people will be like, yeah, well, you know, like, we do it this way. Because somebody came up with that original method, and perhaps they don't like somebody walking up to them and telling them it's stupid and inefficient, even if it is. And it's one of the reasons why politics bothers me so much, man. That's a problem human beings have. I don't know how it can be solved. So we can argue back and forth about who should get elected because of their big brain thoughts on healthcare or the economy. But the bottom line is I want somebody who can walk into a room with 35, 40 of their colleagues and say, I know I got here and this is my first day, but you're all crap. None of your stuff worked. You have to try something new. Now, I'm sure someone's tried that. You probably get ostracized and bullied out of it. But if that's not what's happening, then what's been happening forever will just perpetuate. If somebody walks in and is like, I got good ideas, people are like, well, we have better ones. That's why we get elected every time. Shut up. Do what we say. You just got here. It's your first day here. You don't tell us what we should or shouldn't do. Tell us what bills we should or shouldn't write. Tell us our ideas are crap and don't work. Like seriously, nobody's ever worked anywhere where somebody stuck their head in the sand and just refused to acknowledge that their methods or ideas were crap and bad and didn't work because they were their ideas and that's what they really cared about. And you think it doesn't happen in politics? I mean, come on. I don't see how it could not. I don't see how anyone could appreciate some new person walking into their place of work and saying, hey, you know those like bills you've been signing and passing for 15, 20 years? They're crap, they're stupid, they don't work. But I don't know what you do. Maybe one of the most important things for any politician is just temperament, because their ideas really don't matter. You could have the most genius idea, but if you cannot win the battles that you're put up against, the political battles, when you actually get up to the bureaucratic process, if you're losing on those battlefields, it doesn't matter how good your ideas are. I mean, maybe if they're good enough, someone more ruthless than you will steal them from you and implement them, but they'll probably implement them in a kind of, perverse way that benefits them. Because that's why they're there. They're not idiots. It's like you look at the way some of these politicians act and say and do things, like, are they dumb? It's like, I don't know. They've been elected a lot. Running in races against other people that wanted to get elected a lot. And they keep winning. They can't be dumb. So what is it? Who knows? I don't know. Who do you want me to beat up? Which politician? Well, I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, right? It's seriously, something akin to that, does happen with sports teams, right? Where you'll have, a team, a lot of people, a lot of people don't realize this because you think there's pro sports teams. And basically every I can say in American sports, I have to imagine all sports, businesses in general, right? For example, not every fast food burger place actually wants to be the next McDonald's. Not that many actually are striving for that. That's not necessarily where everyone wants to be, not everyone opens a shoe store and says, I will have the next biggest shoe store on the planet. I will sell the most shoes in the some people a lot of people's aim, I don't want to say are setting their sights lower. They're just like, well, I don't know if that's reasonable, right? In pro sports, you'll see there's maybe 5 or 6 or 7 teams in any pro sport that's we legitimately want to win a championship. Because there's a lot of things you have to spend money on. You don't people you'd be like, well, they have salary caps, for example, in sports. Salary caps, right? They do, but here's the thing. There's no cap on the amount of money I can spend on my practice facilities. There's no cap on the amount of money I can allocate to my players for travel. There's no cap on the amount of money that I could spend on, training staff necessarily. And there's no cap on the amount of discipline, focus, and just energy level of we're going to do things correctly here you can have. So there's some franchises where it's the practice facility sucks, travel sucks, the building sucks, it's all garbage, no one cares. You can go out there, do whatever you want, no one's going to call you out. You can go out there to the basketball game, just 20 shots in a row, miss all of them, no one will even care because we just lose every game and we suck. And you'll see what'll happen. Players will come from good teams, good franchises, and they'll go to bad ones. And they'll be very frustrated and unhappy for a little while. And then they either leave, or if they're older, sometimes they'll just say, screw it, man. I don't care anymore either. But, like, it doesn't matter. Like, a lot of times, and you see it in politics, right? A lot of politicians show up. They either get with the program eventually, or they flare out and leave. You know, you might be of all these ideas, and I'm gonna show people how big my brain is. Guess what? Every single person there is trying to show people how big their brain is, and they're not gonna appreciate you not agreeing with them. Hey, Skechers with memory foam are great shoes. They really are. But it's weird. It's tough. I think it's one of the reasons why. You know what's funny? Again, you know, we'll keep using sports now. I'll keep this one short. There was football player. I guess you can call him controversial now, but there was an NFL player named Adrian Peterson. And I grew up, not grew up, but I watched him when I was younger. And he was really one of the greatest of all time, right? He would do these things kind of frequently, where he'd have certain individual plays and styles he would run, very unique to him. And it was really cool to see happen. And then he retired, and then about a decade passed, and then every now and then you'd see one individual player have one play kind of similar to his, but not as impressive. And all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, Jesus, he would just do that like a couple times a year. And now, over 5 or 6 years, maybe one guy will get kind of close once. The reason why I bring it up is that probably happens in politics too, where you do every now and then have somebody come in, right? And they do, like, bring people together. They get stuff passed. Nobody ever gets passed, right? They bring people together to vote things no one ever gets. But it's because they were unique and special. And then when they're gone, yeah, maybe for 20, 30 years, we don't see anyone do anything like that. Like, it actually is a hard job. It's not like, well, you just get elected and do what you need to do. Again, it reminds me, like, I guarantee you, very similar to professional wrestling. Go back to that but very similar to professional wrestling. Guarantee you, a lot of great bills, a lot of great ideas, a lot of great policies, a lot of great things don't get passed or even voted on or ever discussed because of backdoor politics, because of behind-the-scene politics, because of my name isn't big enough on that bill kind of politics. I guarantee it. What the hell else are you going to do when you're up in the Capitol Hill for 30 years, getting nothing done? It's a bicker over egos. And the greatest example of this ever was when they had the impeachment. The story goes, and maybe the story isn't true, but I think the story's true, is that Nancy Pelosi literally pushed back for hours, a day, however long, the official signing of the articles of impeachment because she had custom-made monogram pens, and she wanted everyone to sign the articles with the custom pens she had made in a photo op. Tell me how that has anything to do with qualms against Donald Trump. And nothing. It's just to make her feel better. Make them feel good. It's to be like when we do get Trump impeached, they'll put this picture in history books of me with my golden monogram pen. It was such crap, but you know, that's what they care about. Anyway, Tyracha, $5 super chat just as support. Thank you very much, man. I very much appreciate it. Yeah, I'm gonna pull a picture up. I'll pull it up. That was a stunning moment. A stunning moment. And wow, this is just performative crap. Performative garbage. Even better. So fact check. Let's go through the story of it. So, fact check, and this is even better. I don't think they understand that. Anyway, factcheck.org. We're going to go through the story. So, Pelosi's impeachment pens aren't 18-karat gold, obviously. It's from this year, by the way, 2020. From this year. Quick take. Claims spreading online say House Speaker Nancy Pelosi used expensive pens or one made of gold to sign the articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump. Actually, the pens, which are made mostly of brass, have a suggested retail value of about $20. Still kind of high for a pen, right? $20. They have the picture, though. Oh, they don't have the picture. Anyway, the pens are made by Garland Writing Instruments in Coventry, Rhode Island. The suggested price is $20 for a pen. It was just under $15 per pen because they got them in bulk. But Pelosi used 30 pens to sign the articles of impeachment before handing them out to House Democrats. Yes, Everyone had to get their souvenir. And again, they were just $20 pens. Like real wrestling, why get an 18-karat gold pen? It's literally just for the picture. It's just to look good on camera. I'll show you guys the pens. They did look good on camera. You know how good these pens looked on camera? People speculated they could be made of real gold. But like the level of performative nonsense, how far removed from this is legitimately serious politics where we care about policy is it when you make sure everybody has their nice custom-made pen and you sign every name with a different pen so people could take home their own souvenir pens? Like, why? I could see in wrestling terms why you do it. It looks good for the cameras. I don't see in, like, political terms how it makes any sense. I think they have video for doing it as well. Nancy Pelosi is one of my favorites. She's one of the most shameless performative politicians around. She loves performative politics. Her wearing the African tribe scarf, getting down on one knee. Man, she was so happy in that picture. Look at her face signing this. She was like, yes, all these pens. Look at me, I'm on camera. It's like, I swear to God, I see like Hulk Hogan. That's what I see right there. I see Hulk Hogan. You know what, brother? I don't really care what I gotta say, brother. As long as people pay attention to me, brother. As long as the cameras are on me, brother. We're impeaching Trump, brother. Whatever, brother. Here's your pen. Like, what is this? Why do they do stuff like this? I don't get it. I mean, I do get it, but it's just hilarious to me that they try to like sell people with this like serious stuff. Our impeachment of Donald Trump was so serious and real, we had to make sure that everybody got their own custom souvenir pen to take home. But that's what I mean. Imagine though. Like, imagine you're talking about impeaching the president. That's a big deal. There's a lot of political implications to that. Probably a lot of like legal loopholes you gotta jump through, right? A lot of stuff like that. And they probably had time discussing, well, what are the pens going to look like? You know, how many should we get? What should we do with them? We can't just sign it. You know, it's got to be a big photo op. People got to see you sign it. People got to see me sign it, Nancy Pelosi decided. People have to see me sign it big time. I'm going to use 30 different pens, make a big show of it so we can all take them home. And imagine you're somebody in that room who, joke's on you, idiot, thought you were going up to Capitol Hill to like do some real work, some real politics. What if you actually thought we were impeaching Trump? Imagine that. You're in the meeting where they're discussing how should the signing ceremony look on camera? And you're like, wait a minute. I thought we were like impeaching Trump. Why are we talking about how our signing ceremony should look on camera? Why are we talking about we should be presenting the boxes to each other? And you realize, yeah, I know, you idiot. We're not here to like solve things. We're here to get on camera, be on TV. Because they know that's how you keep getting elected. That's how you beat Nancy Pelosi, right? Okay. So as before, Jon Stewart, in an interview with Joe Rogan, they brought up the idea of how wrestling and politics are similar. Jon Stewart is a wrestling fan. I believe Jon Stewart took a Stone Cold Stunner from Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin, holy cow, in a wrestling ring. I mean, he's a fan, right? But he brought up an angle that I do think is very interesting to it, and it does kind of make sense. One of the reasons why wrestling kind of works the way it does, it had to be put on. Wrestling was kind of this, like, for example, WWE Raw is a show that's never ended. Like, the season doesn't stop. It literally runs January to December and then just January to December for 20-something years. How do you do that? Nothing does that, except maybe cable news, right? Maybe cable news also literally just runs every single day, every week, all year. It never ends. There's no off season. There's no breaks. WWE doesn't have a down season, don't get me wrong. But for a while, wrestling's done that. So how do you do that? How do you program that as a producer, right? You gotta make sure it's the same basic story every single day. You just sort of change some of the facts. It's the same story every single day. There's good guys, there's bad guys. The bad guy is going to try to cheat to win, and the good guy's either going to get cheated or he's going to stop him. And you come up with different ways to play with these basic formulas. And Jon Stewart talked about how he'd always have to fight the willingness to want to do that politically. Just, okay, cool, pull up what Republicans did, I'll call it stupid, pull up what Democrats did, we'll say it was great, that's the show, we'll wrap. Because then, if that's the show, every single day, no matter what, then you never have to worry about what your content is. Somebody did something somewhere, just tell me what it is. If they're a heel, we boo them. If they're a face, we cheer them. What's so hard about that? And I do see from that point, yeah, it does make a lot of sense from a production angle to just always dig in. People call it bias. It might be bias, but it might just be the easiest way to cover news. Whatever one side does is bad. Whatever one side does is good. Every time, always. It's easy. There's nothing you never have to really worry about what we're covering today. You know, there's not going to be these backroom, especially with Trump. Oh my God. With Trump, it's even easier. It's just not even what one side does. It's not anything one guy does or says. We just take our side and then we defend it or attack it. And that's it. It's all we do every single day, all day. Yeah, you can run programming all day. You could run a program like WWE Monday Night Raw. That just never ends. If there's always, especially, it's funny. You can almost compare the way the media is covering this to the wrestling boom of the late 90s, mid to late 90s. A lot of people didn't know how to handle it. One particular company lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars because they didn't know how to handle what was going on. They didn't know how to keep up with it. Things were moving so fast. The industry was growing so big. They were trying to do all kinds of different stuff. Now, the media is not there yet. The media is still definitely very much of, well, we just pick a side and we praise and we attack one. But eventually, someone's going to decide, someone's going to do what happened to pro wrestling. This is what happened. Somebody who didn't care at all about, somebody who didn't come from inside of the industry, who came from kind of outside of it, realized, oh, it is all a game. The whole thing's a work, so to speak, and none of it's actually really real. And you can play with it, and you can make these people do whatever. You can kind of play the game however you want. I wonder who the first news outlet's going to do that is, right? Have, radically, shifting, have content that's always shifting back and forth. What's their bias? I don't get it. Sometimes they're biased to the right, sometimes they're biased to the left. It's for a few months, be all about Joe Biden, and then just boom, write a Joe Biden piece, slamming them, turn on Joe Biden for a few months. I wonder if anyone's going to try that just to create an aspect of dude, you turn into this channel every day. It's what are you going to get next? It's one day he goes off on Trump, one day he goes off on Biden, one day they go off on so-and-so. It's crazy. It's anything could happen. Once that happens, that's when we've reached full WCW, and that's when the media is officially over. That's when the media is just going to fall apart. But someone's going to do it, man. They're going to start, I feel it. If things continue in this way, someone's going to do that. One of these networks is going to be all right, let's start implementing, let's start mixing our coverage up. Just the CNN's always anti-Trump. It's going to get stale. Especially when what really happened to is if Trump gets reelected. Because it is, man. I guarantee there's got to be some people that are tired of just turning on CNN and saying, well, they say everything Trump does is bad, so... why do you even, at a certain point, why do I need to watch CNN? Trump did something, it was bad. That's the news. Why do I have to watch CNN to tell me that? CNN already told me he's the worst. He's basically worse than Hitler. Anything he does must be bad as Hitler. So why bother watching their programming? Just to get angry? And that's going to happen. It's probably happening already a little bit. Probably weans in and out every different cycles of months, right? It'd be the same thing for people watching. Tucker Carlson in particular would be critical of, but I guarantee Sean Hannity is a good example. I guarantee you the same thing happens. People are just I'm sure Trump did something and it was great. I'm sure everything Trump does is great. So why, the libs did something and it was bad. Everything the libs do is bad. Why am I watching this show? It's literally just someone telling me the same thing every single day. And someone might want to mix that formula up. Start playing with it a bit, Start throwing some curveballs out there. Create, and it was a style of telling. I'll wrap up my comparing wrestling to political news and politics in general in a bit, basically here. But it really does kind of remind me a little bit There was a show called WCW Nitro. It was backed by Turner Broadcasting, backed by $1 billion company. The show went from the most popular show in its industry to crashing and burning and bankrupting just like 4 years later. And it did that because they wanted to create an atmosphere where it felt like anything could happen any night. And it worked for a while amazingly. People would tune in because it felt like anything could happen. Any night. Because you gotta admit, right? You think about tuning into cable news. Does it ever feel like that anymore? It's like, oh, no, it's gonna be the same thing every night. You know, they're gonna show Donald Trump, and I'm gonna go boo, or I'm gonna go yeah, and then they're gonna show someone else, and I'm gonna go boo. I'm gonna go yeah. I get that's all it is. People are gonna get bored of that. You know, it took like 15 years. People eventually got tired of cheering for Hulk Hogan, so they made him boo him instead. I wonder if that'll happen with one of these networks. Will it be like, I think it's happening. Like right now, Tucker Carlson, I believe, is the highest viewed show in cable history, right? But also, there's a couple big cable news networks. One of them is conservative, and two of them, or three, how you look at them, are left-leaning and do the same thing. Like CNN, MSNBC are fighting each other for viewers. Fox isn't really fighting anyone for viewers. So really, cable news in general is booming right now, is what I would say. Like, if you combine CNN and MSNBC into kind of like, you know, just like the anti-Trump and the for-Trump networks, if you looked at them that way, numbers are up. Numbers are huge. But people are going to start getting tired of it. Just everything's anti or for-Trump every day. People are going to just bored. Right? I guess you could say one of the closer things to it right now is kind of like Tucker Carlson, or you'll see there's some outlets, and they're more smaller, not bigger, but we'll start seeing it too, left-leaning outlets that turn to start being more critical of the left. Because that's what I think people are going to start wanting to see. They're going to start wanting to see news is going to feel a lot more authentic if everything doesn't fit into, like, what a surprise! This party did something and it was bad again! And what a surprise! That party did something and it was good again! People are just going to get so tired of that. Like, really? No, it can't always be that one party's just always right and one's just always wrong, and there's two networks that just disagree about which party it is. That can't be real life. It doesn't make any sense. So it'll appear a lot more authentic and raw and crazy if you had a network out there that's like, yeah, Democrats did this and that was awesome. Republicans did that and that sucked. But Republicans did that and that was awesome. Democrats did that and that sucked. That would be like, I don't know, there'd be an energy to that. I think that people actually want to see, especially in cable news. There'd be a big market for it. As opposed to just, well, why am I booing them today? And why am I cheering for them today? That's kind of what cable news is right now. So why am I booing? What did the Limbs do today, right? What did Trump do today? Exactly. People probably actually say that to themselves when they tune in, not fully understanding what's going on, right? That they literally aren't looking for news. They're just looking for someone to tell them, what's the next thing and what's the next dastardly plan, right? I'm sorry. That went on way longer than I intended it to go. But I'm just telling you, man, it really does feel like I can, like, the more I watch cable news now, the more I'm just like recognizing like pro wrestling segments in it. And I'm like, yeah. That's why as soon as I start recognizing angles, I'm like, oh god, this is too much. I can't do this anymore. I still wonder if one day we'll see what happened in pro wrestling. Like, I wonder if one day we'll see something like people will tune into Rachel Maddow and all of a sudden Tucker Carlson is sitting at his desk in Fox News on MSNBC, and he's like, hey, don't change that dial. This is MSNBC, but we, Fox, just bought it, and it's ours now. I wonder if that ever will happen, or the inverse, where people turn on Tucker Carlson, and it's Rachel Maddow at her desk, like, hey, you might be thinking it's Tucker, and you're wrong, but this is Fox. It's ours now. We bought it. I wonder if that'll actually ever happen. I think it could. I think I could actually literally see that exact same angle happening. Like one network just folding and being purchased by another and them doing a simulcast like that. Now, it wouldn't be quite as WWE. There wouldn't be quite as much animosity behind it. But I could see it happening. I really could. I mean, the political personality, journalists are already basically pro wrestlers. Politicians have been for a while. Journalists are basically pro wrestlers too now. Because if you can't get yourself over, you're not useful as a journalist to a lot of these media companies. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't go out there and draw an audience yourself, if you can't go out there and kind of, do your... And a lot of these people have, like, gimmicks. Like, a lot of journalists literally have gimmicks. Andy Ngo, great example. He has a gimmick. He's the anti-Antifa guy. That's his gimmick. He'll go out there and cut promos on Antifa. Oh, man, Antifa this, Antifa that. He'll heel on Antifa all the time. I guess he'd be like the face in that situation. But you see what I mean? Like, and he is famous and doing pretty well. A lot of journalists, there's resistance journalists. Oh my God, there's this one guy on Twitter, something Lawrence something. He's a lawyer. Literally, all he tweeted about was every single tweet, and he tweeted nonstop every single day. He just tweeted about Trump being impeached. That was his gimmick. I'm the legal scholar impeachment guy. It's my gimmick. It's all I talk about all day, every day. It's all I'll bring up. Nothing else. It's my main opinion. It's just my one thing. Because that was his gimmick. It's all he got over. He got over doing that. They do the same thing, man. It's so hilarious. Yeah, Rachel Maddow did it. Rachel Maddow had her gimmick. Rachel Maddow's gimmick was, I remember when Rachel Maddow, she was so devoted to the gimmick. She was so into the bit. She's like, I have Trump's tax returns, and we got them live. I'm going to show you guys live on air. And it was like she didn't. She had like one page of filings, and they didn't show anything. And she was just kind of like, well, you could imagine it could be bad. Like, imagine being that committed to the bit where you wouldn't just read through it and go, okay, we must not go to air with this. This is nothing. It could have been something, and we had an idea, but it didn't. No, that was her bit. Her bit was that Trump, Russia impeachment. That was her entire bit. That was her shtick. Well, I think I would argue one of the reasons why Tucker's the most successful of all of them is he does do a better job of most. Tucker actually broke free of his old gimmick. He used to be the weird bow tie guy. Oh, what was that? Was that on CNN? Was it CNN, Tucker? When he used to have shows, he used to have a show on CNN, he wore like a bow tie. That was like his gimmick. He wasn't like breaking free of that kind of switching. But yeah, like, but here's the thing. You know how many people are journalists on the internet and have TV shows and write in papers that don't have a gimmick, so you don't know who they are, don't know they exist? It's just like, they're just a journalist, just some person. A lot of them. They don't get very far. Jim Acosta. Oh my God. Another guy with a gimmick. Jim Acosta's entire gimmick is he goes to the White House press briefings and he antagonizes Trump. His whole gimmick was getting into arguments with Trump at press briefings. That was his whole gimmick. He wrote a damn book based on that gimmick. Because it was successful. It was getting, in wrestling terms, getting over in the sense of like people were liking it. It was making him popular. It was making him money. So he just kept doing it. And then a bunch of other journalists saw that Jim Acosta was, doing so well for himself, just getting in arguments with Trump at the press conferences. That's kind of what the press conferences devolved into, is every journalist trying to, become the next Jim Acosta, arguing with the president. Or or arguing with his press person. Because you have to admit, it was a great gimmick. He would just stand there and scowl and then looked like confused when Trump was listening to him, and he would just argue and bicker back and forth. Got him a lot of TV time, got him a book deal. Right? But that's the gimmick, and if you don't have one, you're not going to get very far in that business. Yeah, it was Crossfire, wasn't it? That was the show that Tucker Carlson used to be on, I think. Yeah, but like Tucker's whole gimmick was he had a bow tie. Like, think about it. The whole industry was so, like, that's why the news industry today does remind me of, like, WWE Raw and WCW Nitro. You look at, like, the people who used to work in networks, and it's like, wait a minute, what? Like, imagine hearing that today. Tucker Carlson used to work on CNN. Like, what? He did? Tucker Carlson, CNN? That's like the what was it, the Romeo and Juliet's families. That can't happen. But yeah, a while ago, it did good. Anyway, I guess we'll recap one thing we'll go through. We'll go through the violence interrupters again. So violence interrupters are something that Bill DeBlasio, for anyone who just joined, a couple things. One, Cardin is not here tonight. He's finishing up his vacation. Now, good news is, Cardin, I guess even better news for some of you, Cardin will be back next week, and I will not be here the beginning part of next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It will be just Cardin. But yeah, that's what's going on there. And then we'll go back. We'll go back through first story I was talking about at the very beginning, and just a little bit. But anyways, I don't have time to do the whole run through. But shootings have got bad in New York City, so they're trying to figure out how to stop it. Now, there was a program. It's been instituted. It feels like some of the earlier documentation. It goes way before this, obviously, but it was something that goes back at least 15, almost 20 years now. This idea of having people that are familiar with the individuals that are likely to commit acts of violence in the streets intercept people committing violence and stop them. They're paid by the maybe not the police, but they're paid by the state generally to do this thing. Anyway, so Bill DeBlasio is now proposing turning to, as well as increasing the police presence in these neighborhoods, I think particularly Harlem, where they've seen a ridiculous, 33 shootings in Manhattan North as of July 5th. A lot of shootings. So they're turning to violence interrupters. Again, they're basically just citizens, regular people that are hired to, the idea is, excuse me, one second. Anyway, the idea is this. The idea is if you have individuals that maybe were former gang members or in an interface with gang members in some way to a level of where they would be trusted by people in the community who might be committing crimes, stuff like that. If we could have them on our payroll to kind of recognize when people that, are up to no good and can potentially stop them, then that'll be good. However, as one city councilman points out, obviously they're not police officers referring to these violence interrupters, and they can't forcibly hold someone against their will. I understand it, but it's just him just kind of digging into it. But this is what I thought was even funnier. Another councilman said, if you ever tried to approach a New Yorker or throw some litter out of their car, it escalates, he said. And I would have to imagine, yes. So, but the fact of the matter is, New York City in general is running out of money. Or maybe running out of money is the wrong way to put it. New York City in general is probably going to be struggling for tax revenue for a couple of years, and they got hit hard by coronavirus. So they've had to scale back a lot of things. They tried scaling back NYPD. The scaling back they did obviously was very bad. A lot of people are getting shot and killed in a small part of New York just within a week, right? So they have to turn to something. It appears the part of turning to this is, having basically paid community snitches. I hope that works. I've personally seen, I've posted this story before, but it's not what bothers me, but what worries me about having these violence interrupters, but just the idea of these community workers that would respond to calls instead of police, is if they're kind of like something's happening outside on the street right now kind of calls. I've seen a homeless guy just take cops 2-on-1. He lost, but he tried taking 2-on-1 because they said, "Hey, buddy, you can't beg for money or you got to move." Because I was watching him harass people, and they weren't beating him with clubs, but he just didn't feel like moving, so he fought him. He was a pretty irrational person, he didn't seem to be all there. But it was just I just wondered, what if somebody who isn't a cop walks up to them and says, "Hey, move"? They're just gonna listen? Well, you're not a cop, so I guess I'll do what you say. I can't imagine that will happen. And so eventually, you run this stuff enough, people are going to get hurt. Anyway. So that's just, that's Bill DeBlasio's next big brain idea. Now, Louisville's been running something they've been running a very similar program in Louisville from 2017 is when they started, but a couple of years after that, they decided to defund the entire program because they found that it wasn't actually working very well. So just a quick recap about that. And because it's Friday night, well, for many reasons. Oh my God, no way. I'm Melanated Scope. I work as a violence interceptor in Chicago. I create relationships with the higher ups in the gang and with the really younger kids. So was that a fairly charitable, not charitable, but is that a pretty accurate explanation of what a violence interceptor is? The idea is, I guess to your point, they know who the people are so they could recognize, hold on a minute, you shouldn't be going there. But I wonder, another, my Melanated Scope, $5 super chat, is that on hot days, I go out as early as 6, 7 p.m. and can be out there until 2:30 a.m. Wow. But I'm also trained as a crisis counselor. I wouldn't let randoms go out. And I think that's the point that really concerns me. Because, yes, cities have been implementing this program for years, it appears. And there hasn't been a rash of awful, doesn't work anywhere. Louisville, it appears they didn't like what was going on in Louisville, but it sounds like in Louisville, they had a problem. One of the main concerns as well was they weren't vetting the people they were hiring, which came to a head when 2 of them were arrested, 1 for attempted murder. So, didn't go well. But yeah, man, that is, I have to imagine if DeBlasio wants to, and this is part of his Take Back the Streets initiative, right? But if you want to take back the streets and you want to turn to this program, right? Violence interrupters, what he calls them here in this sense. But if you want to turn to a program like that, I have to imagine they're not going to very thoroughly vet and get the right candidates and train them correctly for this role. It's probably just going to be like, cool, you want to go out and help? Go out in the street and beat people up. Which, by the way, is not a novel concept at all, really. The police having people beat people up on the streets, which I'm hoping is not what this turns into. Hopefully it is closer to what you described on the scope of just people who they live in the community, so they can be like, you can kind of recognize who's doing what, who does what, and you can kind of be where things are going off at times to stop them, right? Police have to just kind of show up later and say, well, shit, there was a shooting. But I thought it was a good point that was made by the one councilman, right? That if you ever tried to approach a New Yorker who litters out of their car, I don't know how the program would work in New York. It appears to be something that works fairly well in Washington, D.C. as well. I don't know how it's going to work in New York City. It sounds bad. It sounds like the kind of thing that will be implemented. You know what? The funding was meant for equipment to combat. Anyway, sorry. I was reading that. Tamarilla brought something else up I want to get to, but I want to run through that again. So, yes. So, hopefully, DeBlasio properly makes sure that this program's put in, but especially in New York City, especially just implementing it now, it just sounds like the worst idea right now for New York City. If they have to streamline the process, I can't imagine they're going to have the perfect the candidates out there in a streamlined process, 1. And 2, that sounds like the kind of thing that could work in some cities that wouldn't work in others. And I wonder if New York City is one of them. Because New Yorkers seem irritable enough in general. But anyway, that was that. However, there's some other breaking news tonight I want to just run through because it's bizarre. Bizarre, tragic, but some more news. So, let's go through. That's an interesting question. How do you think we should go about solving some of these problems? I'm not sure exactly what problems, but I gotta be honest. A lot of these, I don't know. I guess I do have a I guess I do have a pretty what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to look for it, but I don't know. I have ideas, but too, I think I fundamentally do truly believe some problems exist because they are actually just difficult. We don't actually know what to do. So as far as ideas, though, I definitely think they should have. I'll tell you what. It seems like in New York City, when they scaled back stop and frisk the way they did, it did lead to more shootings. That means stop and frisk was good? Probably not. No. Did it mean that it was in some way suppressing shootings? It looks like yeah. So maybe they should revisit that drawing board and think of a better way of implementing that. No, again, it does sound like, and I think that was one of the things that did get Mayor DeBlasio. The idea of having this as he calls them, violence interrupters, but just these people that intercept from the community. It is, again, specifically, once again, targeting gun violence. One of the main reasons I've seen in some of the other arguments for it. They specifically referenced in bringing about ending gun violence. So this could be it, honestly. This could be it. I will stand corrected if New York City properly implements this thing on the fly right now. But it does sound like a tightrope. Oh, we got $5 super chat from my melanated scope. It says, yes, I've been in some sticky situations, but I've been able to de-escalate them. It's work that's needed, but has very little margin for error. Well, I imagine exactly. There's probably a few people that actually could do it. You know what I mean? There's probably a few people in any rough community that people would listen to, respect enough to not just try to beat up or shoot immediately, or also be able to kind of handle themselves in situations like that. It doesn't feel like the kind of on-the-fly approach you can make. It feels like a program you have to implement, even if it doesn't always work. So, Either way, though, it is, and I guess from that angle, now that I think more about it, it kind of is revisiting the idea of stop and frisk. I don't like the idea of how they're hanging people out to dry at the same point, though. Because they even said any violence, according to New York City, or nonprofits that ultimately administer this are like held liable for anything that happens to anyone, I guess. I don't know. Anyway. But again, I guess now that I'm talking more about it, it is a way of doing kind of what I was referencing, of revisiting, like, stop and frisk, or that style of policing. Not literally, but it appears did reduce the amount of shootings. Now, could it have done better, and could this be the way? Having a bunch of people, I'm not from New York City. I don't live in New York City. I just really wonder if that would work in New York City. Because it does work in, I don't know, I can't say if it works or doesn't. But yeah, Chicago's been doing it for years. I saw Baltimore been doing it for years. Louisville looks like wasn't happy with it, but they had been doing it. Washington, D.C. has had a program like this for years. They appear to be doing it. It does seem to work in some cities, but I don't know if it'll work in New York City. I thought that was a great quote. New Yorkers don't seem to be the kind of people that, maybe, I don't know. Maybe the communities in New York are different. They're small enough, people do recognize each other. They do know who's who enough to get out of it. But anyway, let's go through one more thing I want to talk about. And that was, I think some of you guys might have heard the story yesterday. Some of you, I heard a little bit of it. I want to touch on this for 1 second, though. Just go through this really quickly. So John Lane put an idea out. He said to use AI and cameras to detect if someone's hiding a firearm, and then have the system check if the person is legally allowed to have a firearm. In general, I honestly am more worried about AI-style policing than I am encouraged by it. So it just creeps me out, man. That particular way creeps me out. But here's the thing, right? I think this is also the other problem a lot of people make when it comes to addressing policy. And I kind of look at it this way, right? If somebody told you that somebody who lives a block away from you, right? They're going to try and kill you. They want to kill you, right? Someone told you that. Would you really be like that concerned about anything else but that aspect? You know what I mean? Would you be like, oh, he wants to kill me or she wants to kill me? Well, I mean, like, what kind of weapons do they have? Maybe I could take them. Or, hey, maybe like if somebody wants to kill you, that's the problem. The fact that they're walking around with a gun and want to kill you, it makes the problem worse. But take the gun away, they still want to kill you. That's still a problem. That's why I think a lot of people look at violence and they'll look at the means the violence is taken with, and then say, we got to just get rid of them. Clearly, if knives didn't exist, this man couldn't have stabbed the other man. So I guess they just both had to leave. Guess he would have had to go, I really want to stab you right now, but knives don't exist, so off you go. I mean, if someone bashes your head in with a pipe and they go, well, don't worry, we banned knives. Like, well, thank God for that. Thank God we banned knives. This guy still wants to kill me, but we banned knives. So how do you stop people wanting to hurt each other? I have no idea. It does seem, though, that you pack people in tight enough and you make the living conditions not good enough, and people will shoot each other. That just seems to be the case. They'll hurt each other in many ways. But it just feels like, like if you have an increase in shootings, like, yeah, you could obviously stop and frisk, or I'm not saying obviously, but just as far as I understand the timeline of events, it was like stop and frisk was totally repealed. They moved the police officers off those plainclothes units to implement it, and then shooting started to skyrocket because that was the Band-Aid they had over it. But I think that's it. All you could do is, I guess, put a Band-Aid on it. Say, what'll kind of like stop what'll make it less bad? Like, yeah, so people still want to kill each other, and they'll probably beat each other and stab each other, and bad things will happen, but they won't be shooting each other, and that's the problem we have now. I mean, I hate to say it, but probably something closer to a stop and frisk is probably what my solution would. Maybe not literally stop and frisk, right? But plainclothes officers in the areas where there are a lot of shootings to kind of monitor and keep an eye on things. Which I guess you could argue this violence interrupter program would be the next closest thing to it, right? It's just I would rather they were plainclothes officers and not people from the community, because it's just, I think actually a little where was it? I think it was my Monday script brought this up. We said there was a program named Ceasefire here in Chicago. I think we're actually reading from the Ceasefire literature earlier. And they tried to do it, but one of the guys ended up still being gang involved and was putting hits on the people he was supposed to help. That's what I mean. You have to, whenever any program exists, how can it be abused? Someone will try to abuse it. And yeah, I feel like the police will obviously abuse their power too, but I'd rather have an employee of the state liable by the state or the city, trained by the state or the city, like, accountable to the state and the city. I'd rather have them out there in plain clothes for the most part on like a wide, like the majority of the approach. Having auxiliary people that are basically community members that can help out, that makes sense. But like, that can't be the brunt of it. The brunt of it would have to be something more direct. But that would, here's the thing though, I don't know if that would even work to stop it. Because again, the problem is people are violent. There's violence in the areas. How do you suppress violence? It's a tough question. I don't know what you do to suppress violent communities. I really don't know what you do. And by that, I just mean like an area where violence is happening, right? Because obviously people in that area have problems with each other. Obviously, like, that's, I don't know why else there would be violence on any level, unless some people have problems with each other for something. So how do you reduce that? Like, you could police it, right? But how do you actually reduce the violence? Not just police the violence, right? Like, just because I couldn't shoot you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for 8 months straight because the police were there, and that one day I did find a time where I could shoot you, they delayed the shooting by 8 months. That's good. But it wasn't prevented. It was just delayed. And the thing is, you can never see that. You know what I mean? Like, that isn't, it doesn't show up as a data point anywhere. That for the 7 months before the guy killed somebody, the deterrent efforts were working. It was hard for him to do it. So, I hate to say it all the time, but I don't know, man. It's a tough problem. It's confusing. I can see a lot of things that could work, a lot of things that could try. I think whatever they're going to roll out in New York City, because DeBlasio is such a failure in everything he does, it's not going to work, and I'm worried. Because I've seen Bill DeBlasio make very few good decisions. Unless it is just literally, yeah, we're going to basically have police marching down streets and on every street corner. But I can't imagine that would help, right? Like, here's the thing. I guess kind of my previous example, right? Like, if it's harder for me to go out and kill the people I want to kill because I have plainclothes police and members of the community that are in place, paid by the police to interrupt, like vigilantes to stop me almost. Hopefully it's not vigilantes, but I have a feeling that's how New York City is going to do this. And that wouldn't address, like, I wouldn't be like, well, I guess I don't have to kill that guy anymore. I would have to just get more creative. And you know what? You know what worries me? What worries me is that I feel like a lot of people would rather implement policy that makes it so the exact same people are killing the exact same people, but it just doesn't show up in front of people as often, right? Like, the deaths could stay the same, the assaults could stay the same, but if the shootings went down, they'd call it a success. So we reduce shootings. Because some people, that's the problem. They say we need to reduce shootings. Okay, we can reduce shootings. I mean, police guns. Police guns, you'll reduce shootings. 1,000%. Make it very difficult to get a gun, and make it so if you do have a gun, they throw the book at you and have people literally just walking around searching for guns all day. Shootings will go down. I don't know what it will do for any of the other issues that go on around the shootings, but the shootings will go down. But it's tough about policy, you know? You could just say, we'll intercept every crime before it happens. Okay, but people will figure out a way around that. They'll do something. Like, wasn't there even like, what was that movie, Minority Report? Well, it's a book, but the movie, you know, where they had the precogs. They could tell someone was going to commit a crime before they did it. that funny? In a world where your crimes are literally seen from the future and you're prosecuted for them, people would still commit crimes. It's a funny sci-fi concept. I'll go through it. It reminds me, they did a Star Trek episode where they had a planet that had no crime. It was like the most peaceful, no crime planet ever because the punishment for every crime was death. And they're like, yeah, it took a little getting used to, but hey, who wants to die, right? If you value your life, don't commit crime. So in a way, you could say, yeah, the ultimate way to end crime is to just have no tolerance for it and literally execute anyone found guilty of committing crimes. People would probably stop. They'd be like, well, but you know what's funny? No, they wouldn't. People would still commit crimes and just try to get away with it. Is what really would happen. So yeah. It's like a lot of people try a lot of... I mean, it's one of those things like shootings... It's not like shootings became a problem in Chicago last year. It's not like violence has become a problem in New York 6 months ago. They've been throwing everything at these problems for years to see what works. They're trying. People are trying. It's the government, so it's coming through kind of stupid and ineffective. But people inside of it are trying. Like people aren't just like, well, oh, Detroit sucks, whatever, because it just sucks here. I don't think that's how everyone feels. People are trying to turn these things around. They're trying to fix things. They're trying to stop violence, but it just seems to be an uphill battle. People can't win. Honestly, it almost makes you want to just say population density is kind of a big problem. People seemingly will just start trying to kill each other if they're living densely packed enough long enough. Another interesting, just in there. I think it's really fascinating that I'm on that scope. They actually are a violence. I forgot what you said. They have a slightly different name in New York, in Chicago. But I remember picking up some teenage gangbangers to go to Six Flags, first for a lot of them, and the older gang members coming up to me, upset I was taking them out of the hood. Oh yeah, man, they got to control those people. Like, you can't show them anything better than this. If you show people something better than this, they might start getting ideas they are better than this. Now we can't control them, and that's another classic one. That's a class. People, man. People. Sorry, guys. I was reading through chat a little bit. Probably going to wrap up here. We're longer than I thought I was going to go anyway. Just talking on some stuff. It's an interesting point from DVJ, I believe, 461. Said just the idea of, we were able to find Osama bin Laden. It's probably a lot of stuff our government can do if they put our mind to it. And I agree, our government can do a lot more if they put their mind to it. But they could address violence better in cities. And part of it is material. I mean, you can't, but you also have to, you can't, all violence isn't based on material condition. That's, a lot is. Maybe the, violence that becomes a problem for society, maybe that is largely based on material, conditions. But, I don't know, man. Rich people will kill other rich people for all kinds of reasons. Now, we don't have a problem with rich people killing rich people. And maybe that is it. Maybe that is, unfortunately, the answer. You have to find a way to fatten a man up to be complacent, or else he will try to do something stupid. And that's kind of the crux. In a way, it's kind of the crux of our... By man, I mean just human, right? But it's kind of the crux of our society, right? As long as they can keep us fat and happy and lazy enough, we won't do anything stupid. And that's kind of like the tentative balance the government has with us. In a way... Look what's going on with coronavirus. Coronavirus impacted their ability to keep us fat and happy. People out there doing stuff stupid. Maybe that is and you know what? It's one of the reasons why I think there's definitely some logic to that, and it is one of the reasons why I support UBI. I still support UBI more from the kind of like right-wing capitalist perspective of if the economy is a game, let's just acknowledge it kind of does function like a game, and that way now everybody could play it. Like I said, there's a couple ways you can look at it. Is what if a drug dealer buys it? Or what if a billionaire buys it? The way I look at it is if I owned a business, every single person who walks into my business has an extra $1,000 a month. And that helps me as a business owner. That's why I look at it. That's my take on why it's good. But yeah, I mean, if it does help, I mean, I don't look at UBI as a remedy to violence. I just look at it as a better way of addressing some of the inequalities in our economy. I think it makes more sense for the economy to function almost with some kind of UBI. It's like casinos, but yeah, like if you sign up for like players clubs for casinos and stuff, casinos will give you a little bit, just a little bit here and there. They'll send you flyers, hey, come back and gamble. Like they know, like once they get you, you gotcha, you're in. But people might not show up with nothing, but you get them a little bit of money, they'll kind of start playing, and they feel like they're part of the game. So we'll tell you what, we're going to go another 10 minutes all the way to 7. Wow, all the way to 7 tonight. And then we will be wrapping up. And everybody... Oh, yeah, I was going to bring that up. The mayor of Seoul was accused of sexually harassing one of his staff members, South Korea. So after being accused of sexually assaulting one of his staff members, he denied it. He went missing, was found dead, and then they found a suicide note where he apparently said he killed himself because of the allegations. Or not the allegations, but the events, so to speak. Crazy story. We'll run through it really quickly. Gotta love water. So South Korea has been left in shock after the mayor of Seoul apparently killed himself amid allegations of sexual harassment. Park Won-soon, an activist and lawyer who had lived the capital for 10 years, was discovered dead after a search party involved hundreds of officers was launched by police. Fire brigade search dog located Park's body in a wooded area. But the letter said, I apologize to everyone and thank all of those who were with me in my life. I am sorry to my family and whom I only brought pain. Cremate me and spread the ashes over the graves of my parents. Everyone, goodbye. Which... if he was murdered, that probably would be the note you'd leave behind. Sounds kind of open and shut, right? That's what happened. But the local police basically have said open and shut case. He's dead. He killed himself. That's what happened. But they mentioned that Park's death came after 2 days after a former secretary filed a criminal complaint with police alleging he had sexually harassed her. According to police, former secretary and her lawyer visited a police precinct on Wednesday where she gave her testimony until the early hours of Thursday. Now, what's interesting is we've seen a lot of people go down for doing things that were pretty terrible, and they went to prison. They're still serving their sentences. It's interesting to see a high-profile person take their life this way. Now, Korea is obviously not America. But what's also interesting is the fact that this individual was frequently described as not only a progressive but a feminist, I believe, like a woman's. And they mention him in this article. They speak of him as a women's rights activist. Now there's the obvious. What's the word I'm looking for? The obvious. I can't remember. However, I mean, there's the narrative or the story you could see of maybe somebody who is abusive to women would, out of guilt, be something like a women's right advocate. And I do think we see that story play out, right? Where people that do actually harbor certain awful thoughts feel guilty of it and attempted to alleviate themselves of this guilt, they become advocates for that cause. You could almost say it's like the inverse of the classic closet gay Christian anti-gay pastor type, right? Where for whatever reason they're guilted or shamed by how they actually feel, so they overcompensate by taking the other position and being very strong about it. But it is very, they mentioned in this article that the mayor of Seoul is basically next in line for president. That's one of the higher offices as far as status and prestige would go for the country. So very interesting to see. I mean, it'd be like if Bill DeBlasio took his own life. You know what I mean? It would be crazy, especially if in the midst of sexual assault allegations. But very interesting story. I don't know a whole lot more. Excuse me. About what's going on in Korea and all that stuff, but very, very weird. Very interesting story. Kind of a downer to end the week on, I guess. But still, hey, that's what's going on in the world. 2020 really is a unique, crazy year. Like, try to think of what happened in 2017. Like, what happened in 2017, man? People just complained about Trump getting elected. That was basically the news in 2017. And think of everything that's happened in 2020 already. Yeah, speaking of, right? We just saw all kinds of things. But, I mean, I would also argue, though, that back to this last little topic, right? The idea that, like, material conditions and poverty lead to crime. They do, right? But at the same time, I wonder if the same things that are leading to poverty are not also helping to exacerbate the situation. Does that make sense? Like, something leads to poverty. I guess you could argue we all start off impoverished and you work your way. But, like, there's a process going on that leads to a bunch of people in a certain area being impoverished for a long period of time. And then I agree, that leads to violence. But something led to the poverty as well. So I agree addressing that is right. It's not always as easy as addressing poverty by giving somebody money. Sometimes other things are going wrong that are screwing them. And if you address that, it's even easier. Again, I look at UBI more as a way to stimulate the small business owner style of the American economy. I think that's really where UBI would benefit. Kind of Main Street America, right? I think that's one of the reasons why I like it. I think other things would have to be done to deal with some of the other poverty issues. It would help, but other things would have to be done. And I think that's more fruitful line of thinking there. My only point. Because, I mean, I make this point a lot, right? People talk about how Democrat-run cities seem like awful places to live a lot of the time. I'm getting ready to leave Los Angeles. Like, I agree. I don't like the way that a lot of Democrats are running the big cities. But here's the thing: is that almost every big city is ran by Democrats. So it's kind of like just saying I don't like the way big cities are in general ran in this country. Maybe that's a problem. But I always do wonder, right? Is it like, do the politicians create the misery, or does the misery create those type of politicians? And I honestly don't know. I really don't. Clearly there's misery there. I just don't know which direction it flows. Maybe they both enable each other, right? Because things are miserable there, a certain type of politician is sought out. And because a certain type of politician is sought out, they breed more misery, and it kind of is a cycle. It just continues forever. I don't know. I really don't. But it does feel like it's almost like some link there. All right, getting to the end, so I'll wrap off on one last thing. My melanated scope asked, he said, what's the last song you listened to? / what's the song when you open your music app? The last song I listened to, actually, was Big Iron by, I believe it's Marty Robbins. That was the last song I listened to. And I normally will go through waves of what I listen to, and I'll just pick a certain thing and listen to it over and over again. And I've listened to Marty Robbins a lot lately, like the last few weeks. But I'll just pick something. Like for a while, I was driving a Cardin crazy, because every single stream before we were getting ready, I would listen to like the same 5 or 6 like Big L and Nas songs over and over again. Right now it's Marty Robbins. Sometimes there's like electronic songs I'll listen to. Or like lo-fi house, I guess. I don't know what. It just shows up on YouTube. I kind of go in waves. Yeah. Hey, someone brought up the idea of a garden. I will admit, I felt like a total millennial suburban dweeb. But when the coronavirus panic hit and people were worried about shopping, I remember I was going to the store and buying groceries, and there was less stuff on the shelves, and I was like, "Oh my god, man! If you were able to like grow food at your house, that'd be insane. It'd be crazy. Just grow food. How crazy would that be?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, like farms, like gardens, like yeah, growing food. Wow! Hey, imagine you got a tomato plant, you got another plant, and that's food. You can eat that." I don't know. It was the funniest, like, yeah, oh my god moment. Let's see. Do I play RuneScape? I do not play RuneScape. I have been playing I've been playing way too much. Trying to think of a good way to play it. I've been playing an insane amount of Call of Duty lately, and it's bad. Normally, I don't play that much Call of Duty, but I've been playing a ton lately. So that's what I've been playing lately. Yeah. That's mostly it, though. I play a little bit of Magic Arena. I don't play Paper Magic just because I don't have one to play with or the money to keep up with it. Not like mostly I play. I've been playing lately. I have like 4 different types of large scale, like a military first person shooter, like war sim style games that I'll just cycle through on Steam. Like I play like Hell Let Loose. And then I play other like weirder versions of it. I play weird stuff, man. I play weird stuff. I used to play Dota 2. I mean, I have like 3,000 hours played in Dota 2 or something crazy like that. Haven't played in a while though, and every time I try to go back, they change the game up on me so much. It's hard for me to get back into it. Oh, I'm playing a lot of this game. I'll recommend this game to anyone. Anyone playing a lot of a game called oh my god, how am I blanking on the name of it? It's the dwarf mining game. What the hell is that game? Deep Rock Galactic. I'm playing a lot of that game. Deep Rock Galactic. That's a great one. Pick it up. But anyway. Oh, you know what? You know what's funny too? Spliff Sensei. I've been playing Metal Gear Solid 5 again for the first time in a while. I finally decided I wanted to go back and revisit the Phantom Pain a couple times. But I I remembered that like hour and a half intro. I'm like, I don't want to do that shit again. And I finally was like, I want to do it again. So I did it. And yeah, that's been fun. Do I follow the Smash scene at all? No. Like, no, I used to a little bit. I heard that Zero. I'll tell you one thing. If you would have came to me and said, "Do you know that one of the biggest Smash Bros. Brawl players of all time, the most successful Smash Bros. If someone had told me that a Meta Knight player in Brawl was harassing underage girls, like 100%, brother, I believe that any day of the week. So some of the stuff I heard, but I know a lot of stuff's going on in the Smash scene. I've not been following that at all, no. Oh, so there we go. It is 7:01 p.m., so there we go. Remember, guys, if you play video games, look up Deep Rock Galactic on Steam. It's a great game. Aside from that, though, please, everybody, have a great week. Depending on if you live in one of these major cities, stay safe, or guys have a great weekend. Hope you had a great week. And, yeah, that's it. I'm going to be seeing, I won't be seeing you guys until next Thursday. So, take care, everyone. Hope you have a great weekend. And, yeah, have a great night.